Onions.
Hey, yo, carrot slack.
Ah, my roots are in tango.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we return to the court of the Red Onion. We come to you with a very pressing case. My name is Justice Peel, and I am honoured to chair this particular case. We, here in the vegetation land of great intellect, which is the Red Onion Kingdom, we are also struggling, much like the human population, with the outbreak of the coronavirus and what limiting effects it means on all aspects of our society. In this particular case, our highest maximum security prison, Redondo South, has become filled to the brim. There is space for only one more inmate, and I am here today to judge which of the two following criminals deserves to take that final place in our highest, most supreme center of penitentiary.
Crucifera and marrows, roots and leafy greens, I stand here bravely to defend my client across the swathes of pungent time.
Objection. The representative of Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chang spoke before the justice was fully heard and outlined.
Throw him to the everlasting compost fire!
It was bravery, okay? I'm an
Bravery,
old lawyer with a chip on my
objection.
shoulder.
Justice, man. Throw this man out of court. This is disgrace. He's embarrassing the very institution that you represent.
Will both representatives for the prosecution shut up?
All right, then.
I will decide that both are marked against for their shameless treatment of this court.
I'm innocent.
And the representative of Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chan must be sent outside to compose himself before his presentation. In that time, I would expect the representative of our next criminal to show more respect to the head of today's court. And will he please try to attempt to introduce his client?
Thank you very much, Lord Justice. So my name is No Win No Fee. I represent Tywin, son of Titus, Lord of Castle Rock, who is a man who needs very little introduction. I'm going to give him one anyway. So Tywin Lannister is a man who grew up trying to escape the shadow of his father's mistakes. He's the head of House Lannister in the Westlands of Westeros, which he inherited in dire financial straits and waning power as a result of his father's mismanagement. He turned the house from a joke into the most powerful of all of Westeros. This success came off the back of shall we say, some very questionable and morally ambiguous actions, although I would argue a lot of these actions weren't so morally ambiguous after all. He has an expectation that his children live up to his example, which they're never able to, and in many cases don't want to, or think they are and aren't. He is cunning, politically shrewd and driven, and a very capable commander of men on the battlefield. And after many decades, still in mourning for the death of his wife, who's also his cousin. Nice. Middle Ages, huh? So yeah, that's it. I think that's all the introduction the man really needs. What can I say? He's a bit of a legend, especially around here in the Red Onion Kingdom.
Rubbish! You know we hate the damned Lannisters.
Thank you for that opening statement, representative of the prosecution. No win, no fee. Yes, I would certainly agree that Tywin Lannister, a famous and almost a quintessential Machiavellian, is an excellent candidate for Redondo South Prison. Incidentally, Redondo South Prison is in fact sponsored by Fernando Redondo of Real Madrid fame, who did once spin Henningberg, the Man United defender, like a top, and was called by everybody from the surrounding Stretford end a mug. Yes, he is a great benefactor to us, and sponsors us on a monthly basis for our continuing struggle against the dreaded menace of the Great White Onion intelligence.
On that though, he hasn't actually paid us once yet, so we do need to chase him up on that.
I always expect footballers to honour their contract.
That's all right.
Now I see that the The representative for prosecution of Benjamin Franklin Chan has been allowed back into court. I hope he has calmed down. Would you please give your opening statement?
Thank you for allowing me back into this most gracious of courts. My name is Leafy Green, but ultimately my name doesn't matter during such pressing times. Babies, Gentiles, and senile men of the court, Benjamin Franklin was an inventor, a polymath, a genius, father, and flyer of kites. He loved freedom, guns, and his most famous novel, titled Declaration, The Independence of, is a riveting
Objection, Your Honour. He's not talking about Benjamin Franklin Chan. He's talking about one of the founding fathers of the United States. This man's insane. I strike his case from the court. Please, dismiss this man.
Excuse
Representative
chatting
of
about
prosecution
Benjamin
of Tywin
Franklin.
Lannister, you are not able to make such an action. Representative of the prosecutor of Benjamin Franklin Chang will be asked to clarify his choice of candidacy. And does he know?
Fucking unraveling here. May the representative request a 10-minute caucus?
What? No, objection. No, we're doing this now.
Denied.
Come on, pal.
Continue with your statement.
Verbally abusive teacher, emotionally manipulative vent dweller, salsa dancing divorcee, mannequin leg lover, monkey gas huffer, and user of exceptionally bad puns. Benjamin started from the bottom, but we've somehow ended up even lower. Chang. How does one go from being unemployed and living in vents to being a guard, then a deranged detective, and then head of security for an esteemed community college in a matter of weeks? Initiative? Certainly. But it doesn't end there, and neither does his story. No. Head of security to esteemed general of a child army within said college, his successors allowed them to reform Greendale's security directives, which included clauses on both martial law and the banning of soft serve.
Representative of the prosecution of Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chan, this is a very eloquent and well-delivered speech, now that you're finally calmed down. You are, however, not able to list your representative's crimes until the actual start of that particular round of questioning, which we will get to. I invite you to close your opening statement in the next 10 seconds. Do not flim-flam.
Cunning, manipulativeness, and ability to feel no shame, delusions of grandeur, and described by Mr. Jeffrey Tobias Winger as a psychopath. This man has shown time and time again that he has the ability to poison and destroy the universe that he dwells in, and is the perfect denizen for the Onion prison on this fine day. Thank you.
Excellent. Once behaved, both representatives have given good opening statements. I am intrigued. We now approach the first round of questioning, the issue of their crimes, gentlemen. But before I do that, I must ask you both, do you swear to give your mind, soul, and body for the pursuit of our most transcendent and enlightened of Red Onion justice?
No comment.
I take my silence to also mean no comment.
It seems that we have hit an impasse, gentlemen. Until you say a simple yes, or I do, or fucking yes, let's move on, anything, I cannot move beyond this juncture.
I Chang in honor of my client.
These are terms that I suppose are agreeable given the recent information you have bequeathed upon us.
And with that, we move on to the first round of questioning, although it will be noted for future courts that Justice Peel has had a revelationary, is this what has really become of the Red Onion justice system moment? Anyway, for the first round of questioning, the issue of their crimes, I would invite the representative of Tywin Lannister, son of Tytos, to begin.
Thank you very much, Lord Justice. So it's very nice to open this actually, because there's only one person who's committed real serious crimes against humanity, and that's Tywin Lannister. So I suppose we might as well begin there. So saying that there's good guys in the world of Song of Ice and Fire is not necessarily a true statement, but if there are any good guys, it is undoubtedly House Stark. Now, House Stark was pretty much wiped out of the history books due to the events of the Red Wedding, which happened at the Twins under the stewardship of Lord Frey, but under the command of Tywin Lannister. He orchestrated this whole thing, a series of letters and promising marriages and keeps and castles. He wiped out this entire house. This house we're meant to be rooting for. And I know my honourable opposition sitting over there cried when this happened. I know he did. because I've watched him cry a second time. You know? So I mean, not only that, but Tywin's guilty of being an awful parent. So I mean, he bullied Tyrion basically from the day he was born, blaming him for the death of his wife. I mean, which Tyrion has no control over. I mean, childbirth's a messy thing even nowadays. And he hates Tyrion's a dwarf, and even though Tyrion's his only child that really lives up to his legacy, it's not good enough for Tywin because he killed his wife. So he's always everything he's ever done has been to belittle and keep this guy in his place. And then not only that, Tyrion's 16, he falls in love with what he doesn't know is a prostitute that James paid, and he marries her in secret. Tywin finds out, and then has his personal guard rape this woman in front of Tyrion, like every single one of them, one at a time. This is horrific. The psychological trauma and torment for someone to do this to their own child. And this is just unspeakable horrors, really. I'm saying it now, I'm just feeling disgusted. Not only that, but if you'll recall the rather excellent song Reigns of Castamere, which I mean is not much more needs to be said about Raman Djawadi's talents, but what phenomenal tune that is. This song is basically glorifying the genocide that Tywin committed against House Rain. I mean, calling it genocide, they're the same culture, it's just an underling, but I mean, these people, half their keep was underwater, he drowned them. Like the servants, the lords, the ladies, the children, all of them. He laid them to siege to defeat their army, and he drowned the rest of them. And now they don't exist anymore. He wiped them out from the face of the planet. And that's not even to speak of all the other people he will have had assassinated and taken care of and just put in their place and then bullied financially. I mean, wealth is his greatest weapon, and he's used that to great effect. And he's caused unspeakable horrors, not just to House Stark and House Rain, but across the Seven Kingdoms. Many people fear him, and for good reason. He's a clever man with power and money, and he knows how to use it. Thank you.
An excellent opening for our first line of the crimes investigation. I must ask the representative the prosecution for Benjamin Franklin Chang, did he actually cry upon the news that the Stark family were liquidated?
My tears only serve to drive me on this most wondrous of days, so I don't fear petty insults from the opposition. I shall let the crimes of my client speak for themselves.
Your reaction has been noted. I must also ask that Rosie the guinea pig stop drinking so loudly from the water bottle. It is distracting. Two,
Classic.
the representative of Benjamin Franklin Chang. Your client's crimes and why they have validated a position in Redondo South.
Before I begin, may I ask you, Justice Rind, whatever your name is, will you interrupt me again as I list out my...
Silence. The representative of Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chan will be asked to leave the court again without return if he defames the justice's good name and reputation. Proceed.
There's no more space in this world for heroes anymore, as we have just seen. And I think that it's for that very reason that Benjamin Franklin Chan should be in prison. However, I get ahead of myself. In order to understand the crimes of Benjamin Franklin Chang, we must first understand the first Chang dynasty, a severely pointless autocratic regime enforced by a preteen army within Greendale Community College. Let's focus on the legal terminology of the phrase severely pointless. According to the Root Vegetable Dictionary of STEM terms, compiled by Ms. Edwardia Cauliflower, a descendant of an aristocratic clan of strawberries, for my fellow history buffs in the room, the phrase severely pointless refers to an asparagus without its tip. In this context, much like my last sentence, severely pointless. The first Chang dynasty was, for all intents and purposes, a cult of personality for, you guessed it, the sake of a cult of personality. There was no ideology enforced by the socio-political conditions of its world at play, no organizational strategy, nor, well, planning. Greendale saw tens of dropouts, thereby a severe decline in its usual leafy revenue, wickedly diluted schemes, including replacing the school dean with, and I quote this verbatim, a doppeldeaner, and the spending of the aforementioned drained budget on a Stalin-esque birthday bash. Now, you may wonder where I'm going with all of this.
Yeah.
Pointlessness. Nothing but megalomania, narcissism, and psychopathy. It culminated in the defendant within a universe which was usually defined by multicolored zaniness and an aversion to murder, attempting to blow up the school record room. in order to erase evidence of his crimes and murder in cold blood several students and the real dean. His genius takeover, my friends. Did I say genius? I meant motherfucking abhorrent. Was absolutely insane, pushing the very limits of reality within his universe, and all for the purpose of an ego and cold blood. This is encapsulated by his final encounter with Jeffrey Tobias Winger, as he grabs an electric baton with glowing red lights on the nose reference to some bright saber scene in a Star Trek film, and calls out, "So it ends as it began," to which Mr. Winger tidily responds, "It didn't begin this way." We could explore his crimes for eons, gentlemen, the tens of people within his universe who he has manipulated, tricked, and tormented, but I believe we'll have time to do that.
Welcome to the mannequin leg, you freak.
Thank you very much for letting me make the statement, and I look forward to exploring this further.
Thank you, representative of the prosecution. Gentlemen, your representatives have been charged for the most grievous of crimes, and we have heard them here: murder, extortion, culturally insensitive dress sense, criminal organisation, and public exposure. I have a question. To the representative of Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chang, Mr. Gasman, Tywin Lannister is one of the most feared and ruthless operators in the history of Westeros. We have just heard that his crimes included murder, both enabled and directly committed. Given Mr. Chang's clear desire, if not cries for help for necessary rehabilitation, how can he be considered a more dangerous inmate than Tywin?
Your Honor, Justice Rind, I would like to respond to that by saying this. Murder, unfortunately, if we're judging these characters by the universes that they inhabit, is actually a common happenstance in Westeros. Genocides occur day by day in that bloody country. Therefore, as a result, sure, Tywin Lannister commits a couple of atrocities, but, at the end of the day, those atrocities are a weekly occurrence. However, within the universe of Greendale, which is quite a zany, multicolored, fun universe where murder and crime doesn't really occur in the same way, Chang taking over the school is quite frankly the darkest thing that's occurred within that universe. The man ends up being a warlord in a community college. He tries to blow up the school and murder the entire cast. Now, you also talk about Chang's cries for help. However, I would like to make a final point to the room that Chang has been given plenty of chances, time and time again. Throughout the history of Greendale Community College, Chang is accepted into groups. He's given the medical help that he requires. However, at every chance he gets, he chooses to betray those that choose to help him, which shows you that Chang isn't capable of rehabilitation. Therefore, I already know how this day is going to end, and it's going to end up with my client locked up in Redondo South as he deserves. Thank you.
An excellent response. And now, to the representative of the prosecution of Tywin Lannister. Tywin Lannister is on record as being a manipulative and openly duplicitous character who is not trusted at all by his enemies. Surely Chang's ability to convince people of his changed ways and undermine their mental processes while continuing his schemes requires higher security to prevent this effect happening in jail. What would you have to say to that?
It's a very interesting point. I thank the High Justice Peel for raising it. It's an interesting one because you look at Ben Chang and you look at the way he acts, and generally the attitude towards him is either irritation, because he's really annoying and he uses his name to make puns which don't even make sense, or it's pity. People pity him. This is a man who's pathetic. He has lost everything. And the problem is he's spiraled so far down. He has very serious mental health problems, and he's really get amplified. And he's isolated and abandoned by his peers. So I think the reason why he was able to get into these positions is because people felt so sorry for him. They just underestimated him. At the end of the day, he's not stupid. He's just very mentally unwell. And people kind of look past that and think, oh, it's just this guy who faked a Spanish degree and then pretended he knew a language and then tried to take over a school and then lived inside vents and then invented an illness to get away with his crimes so he couldn't get prosecuted for them. This is pity. pity. That's why.
Another excellent response. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going
Objection.
I'm the representative of Mr. Ben. This is your last warning.
Objection, Your
I
Honor.
think. I have a feeling this will happen again. But I will say that any more garbled noise, and you will be sent outside for at least 10 minutes.
Ham, girl.
Objection, Your Honor.
Allowed?
My opposition talks about the pitiable mental health of my client Benjamin Franklin Chang. However, I would like to point out that there's a severe difference between pitiable mental health, as my opposition points out, and quite frankly, megalomaniacal and narcissistic behavior that manifests itself in arguably one of the most manipulative individuals ever seen across the multiverse. His ability to switch between insane domineering dictator to sweet submissive beta male in order to gain approval and manipulate the school board in order to hide his crimes is honestly far more cunning and ruthless than anything Tywin Lannister
Thank you,
has done.
representative of the prosecution of Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chang. These are very valid objections raised. They will be heard, but it is time now to move on to the next line of questioning. This being, you have heard listed the crimes of these two clients. They're not clients. You have heard the crimes of these two very naughty men. Now, it is time to arrive at the second point of the debate. That is, you will both get the chance to rebuff the claims of each other's clients being worse than theirs. I invite the representative of Tywin Lannister to begin.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a pleasure. So, I mean, we've kind of heard of Ben Chang, all of us, Benjamin Franklin Chang, to his enemies. And he's a man who, in many ways, is so identifiable because we see him all the time. We see who he is and what's made him who he is everywhere. This is someone who has been isolated by society. This is someone who's been put on the fringes, who has no friends. And when he tries to make friends, they shun him off. I mean, I think in many ways, the crimes of what is known as the Greendale Seven, the study group, are far greater than Chang's because they enabled all of this. All he ever wanted, I mean, he bullied them in season 1. Sure, he was a horrible teacher. He lied to them. He jeopardized their degree. Fine. But they purposely and intentionally isolated him. They never had any intention of being nice to him. And this is a man who is very seriously, very, very seriously mentally ill. And he opens up with that himself. I mean, one of the other security guards also points this out. He said this man really needs mental help. I mean, he burns down the school, right? Because he orders how many, 10,000 matchbooks, wastes so much of the school's budget on that. He thinks Arizona backwards is Arizona. And this is clearly a guy who's not thinking straight, and we can isolate this. I mean, he was always unstable. But when he brags about knowing the vents like the back of his Chang, and he goes in to get the monkey out, the monkey knockout gas goes in, and he's exposed to this stuff for hours. And something clearly unravels in his brain. What this man needs is he needs an MRI, and he's a very significant period of cognitive behavioral therapy. And he needs to be cared for by society because, frankly, he never has. He never got over the abandonment from his wife. And he's kind of running from this and hiding, and he's just looking for someone to love him. And I think what he needs is hugs, not bars. And he needs friends and a sense of purpose and not isolation.
Excellent.
No, actually the best point, which I haven't even made yet, he was in love with a mannequin leg, and he called it Veronica. I mean, this is just lunacy. Please, let's just help the guy. I feel sorry for him.
Very quickly, before we move on to the representative, Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chan, I would ask that do those points that he has raised about loving mannequin leg, not being in full possession of his mental faculties, and having a chemical imbalance due to inhaling monkey gas, do those qualities not in fact make him more of a risk and a potential high security threat than your own client?
May I add to that, please, Your Honor?
Invited.
Thank you very much for the stage. I appreciate that my behavior hasn't necessarily been on its best, but it's only because of how passionately I feel about this most important case. So my apologies to you in the courtroom. And I bought you a box of cookies to apologize to. So thank you.
Objection. You're not allowed to bribe
Objection.
the judge.
Why am I saying objection? I'm the judge. The representative and Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chang will not attempt to bribe the jury or any members of the courtroom with bakery products. Finish with your statement quickly.
Okay, isolationist. Benjamin Chang, as aforementioned, was given chances time and time again by the Greendale Seven, amongst others within the school as well. And every single time Chang is invited in, he bullies people, he betrays them, and we even see this at the end of Greendale's tenure, when the second he's given a shot at fame, he completely down-talks everyone that helped him on his road to recovery. Let's talk about his delusions. Every single villain in the history of the multiverse is bonkers and deluded, Tywin Lannister included. And yes, I would argue that ultimately that's not a fair point to argue whether or not someone should be in Redondo South. And you talk about Benjamin Franklin Chan and his mannequin. In these trying times, I think we should all love what we want in the privacy of our own homes. I mean, I was in a committed relationship with a curvy armchair from the ages of 12 till 24. But to parade that kind of thing in public, disgusting. Despite all of this, he saw fit to crown himself a godlike leader, manipulating and bullying preteen hormonal children in the process to commit acts of violence on his insane behalf. Is he insane? Yes, but so is everyone else in Redondo South. And quite frankly, that is a weak counterclaim by my opposition. And enjoy the cookies, Your Honor. I made them with love and sweat.
It takes like 10 minutes to make cookies.
The representative of the prosecution of Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chan will be reminded that the cookies, in fact, have been taken as witness evidence.
I don't throw them out because I want one.
Continuing to the representative of the prosecution of Tywin Lannister, you are now invited to rebuff those claims and demonstrate why Mr. Chang is unsuitable for this final position at Redondo South. Please continue.
Hold on.
Because he's already taken up a lot of time bribing the court with cookies. The representative of Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chan will be invited now to rebuff the claims that Tywin Lannister is the suitable inmate.
Thank you so much again, Your Honor. I hope you, whenever the time is right, I hope you love those cookies. And look, let's stop going on tangents here. All right. I think the first thing I would like to say about this so-called Mr. Tywin Lannister is that ultimately, Mr. Tywin Lannister earned his wealth no better than a Dothraki earns his braids and belts. It's all bureaucracy banded together by a bloody sheen of meritocracy. Tywin Lannister was born on a mountain of gold, and sure, he may have quadrupled that amount of gold. However, at the same time, Donnie T, President of the United States of America on planet Earth, somewhere in this multiverse, also received a small loan of $500,000 from his father, which proved pretty pivotal in him making his way to one of the greatest villains of that universe. Look, I think the key thing about Tywin Lannister is this. He, sure, committed unspeakable horrors against his child, but they're swathed in ideas of societal organization and order. I would like to bring you back to that definition of pointlessness, Your Honor. Sure, he kills a few people, but it's an ordinary happenstance in Westeros, to be sure, and he does it because he believes in it. He believes that this system that he's been placed into will be better for his actions, and he's not doing it for the reasons of being a megalomaniac or stroking his own ego. The Red Wedding, which, yes, brought tears to my eyes, makes complete rational sense. What is tens of thousands of people dying on the battlefield compared with a few at dinner? And quite frankly, it makes complete sense. Look, if Tywin Lannister was placed in a rehabilitation facility, I have no doubt that he would in fact lead to an even more efficient running of that particular place. It's just quite frankly the fact that we have proved that Chang cannot be rehabilitated, whereas I think Tywin would walk to it with open arms. Thank you.
Excellent. Some very good points, well made. We now move to the final. Excellent.
Objection. Can Your Honor use English words, please?
Et maintenant, le résumé of the court case de Red Onion Justice
This is so unbelievably racist.
No, it's not. It's me doing a fairly decent accent.
But everyone knows the French doesn't actually have laws, so to pretend
Anyway.
otherwise.
Excellent points, well made. We now move to the final round of questioning, and before we will arrive at the summary. Redondo South is a maximum security prison located in the heart of our Red Onion's kingdom. It is an incredibly intense environment filled with some of the most high security criminals that currently are under our jurisdiction, including the likes of the Mountain, who is already there, and Feathers McGraw from Wallace and Gromit, The Wrong Trousers.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, he's nasty.
Just some of many hardened criminals in this facility. I invite you now, gentlemen, to explain why and how each one would be the more dangerous impact on that environment, therefore more deserving of a place there under our careful scrutiny. I will ask that the representative of Tywin Lannister begin, but he can't because he's frozen in time and space.
I'm back.
I now ask for the representative of the prosecution of Tywin Lannister to begin.
Thank you very much, High Justice Peel. So, Tywin Lannister, while admittedly of a pensioner's age and disposition, is nonetheless still a man in quite significant shape for his age. You know, this is a fit guy. He was able to ride around on a horse all day. While he may not have seen action on the battlefield, he was certainly present in it, and he had a certain dignity and grace about him. So this is a man who, despite his age, is athletically capable. But the real danger he possesses is up here in his grey matter, in his brain, right? This man has shown time and time again, not only is he cunning, he's a step ahead of all of his enemies. He knows what they're planning on doing, and he knows the confines of the system he's working in. Now, he's learned that over decades. He grew up and he saw the politicking of the houses, and he learned how to turn that to his advantage. If you bring him into this prison, it will take him some time, but he will adapt to that system too, and he will see how it works. He will see how he can use it to his advantage. So, this is a man who requires, pretty high security. Any corruptible guard, anyone who's prone to bribery, is instantly going to be seen by this guy. He's going to recognize them, and this is a man who has all the wealth of Castle Rock at his disposal. He will just bribe them, and he will offer them Castle by the Sea, and before you know it, he's walking free in the middle of the night. This is someone who, he needs to be on the better watch than Epstein.
A good points, well made. It strikes me that Tywin Lannister could very much be a junior soprano type character in our high security.
Indeed. What?
I would just ask the representative of the prosecution of Tywin Lannister to consider whether solitary confinement for his client in this facility would mean that he is hamstrung of a lot of those important character traits.
Yeah, I think in many ways you highlighted it earlier, Lord Justice. This is a Machiavellian person. This is someone who's able and knows how to get people to do what he wants, whether that's through bribery, coercion, or just imposing his own power. I think solitary confinement does take away a lot of his advantages, because without that, the guy is just a pensioner. So yeah, I think in many ways this might be the best thing for him, or the best thing for all of us to be safe from him. For him, he's going to suffer, but so did the start.
Interesting. I will now ask the representative of the prosecution of Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chang to deliver his statement.
Thank you once again, Your Honor. And yeah, I would like to open this up by just saying, let me flip this question on its head. So I think it's quite strange that the court of the Red Onion, in these trying times as well, wants a prisoner that's going to be more difficult to maintain. So we know for a fact that Benjamin Franklin Chang is incapable of rehabilitation. We know that he is going to betray his rehabilitation facility or wherever he's placed at the drop of a hat. We also know that he's a really dweeby middle-aged man who, yes, suffers from megalomania and delusions of grandeur, but ultimately is not going to pose much of a physical threat to any guards as long as he is placed in isolation or with hardened criminals that aren't going to take that essentially aren't going to take his bullshit. I think that the entire multiverse is going to be a lot safer. Okay, look, I know that there always is a risk of him turning himself into a megalomaniacal warlord and taking over the prison and so on and so forth. However, ultimately, do you think any of the other hardened criminals in there are really going to listen to him in the same way that they listen to Tywin Lannister, Your Honor? Like, this man is dangerous. You know that he's going to betray anyone he encounters in society. Therefore, why not put him in a place where he's not going to have any strain on your resources and just rot away with time? Your Honor, I think this is a no-brainer, and quite frankly, I will give my opposition an opportunity to concede the most pointless of cases. Please, opposition.
The opposition is invited to respond to those remarks.
I mean, I think just look at how Chang managed to get Greendale to underestimate him. I mean, he kept falling upwards. Why? Because it was the easiest thing to do. You work for Rudman, so the dean hired him in as a security guard. He was the only one willing to go. He just shows up half naked and vaselines himself because he knows the vents like the back of his Chang. I mean, this is a guy who is able to get people to underestimate him. And I think saying he's not going to thrive in this environment is ridiculous, because we've seen him thrive no matter the odds. And he does get an army of preteen psychopaths to join him. And he enforces his strange, lonely, and depressed will upon everyone. And there's no reason to think he wouldn't do this here. I mean, there's going to be a lot of easily swayable people. I'm sure there's going to be people who've been isolated in this prison for a long time, and Chang knows people like that because he is.
Objection, Your Honor. My opposition has fallen like putty into the palm of my Changs. He has quite frankly described why Chang would be the most dangerous person out of the two within that context, and I have explained why I quite frankly think that he won't be a strain on resources. I think we can now see that this is a win-win situation either way. And again, I would like to invite my opposition to concede this pointless argument.
I must confess that the representative, Mr. Benjamin Franklin Chang, makes some excellent points. Have you not outlined why he's a higher risk?
No, because the whole reason why he's why he's able to do this is because a man just needs therapy. We're talking about locking up someone who's mentally ill. This isn't the 19th century. I mean, come on, have some humanity. The guy needs a hug, therapy, and some warm cocoa. He needs someone to say, look, why didn't you tell me about your childhood? That's what he needs. He doesn't need to be thrown in a straitjacket and put in solitary confinement because maybe he'll be able to manipulate people. No, he just needs to come to terms with his own feeling, understand himself, and grow, and finally be able to become a productive member of society. Not someone who makes really bad puns and invents a disease like Changnesia. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I mean, obviously,
it's diabolical. I agree with you. It's evil. It's malicious. It's Machiavellian. It's everything.
I think I've heard enough, gentlemen. You have both made some incredible points today. Stellar cases, both. Two very complex and complicated and difficult characters. The representative of the prosecution of Tywin Lannister mentioned the idea of humanity and rehabilitation for Chang. And I would agree in part that he is right. Here, at the Court of the Red Onion, we are not simply a punitive service. We seek justice, but we also seek the next step. Our interpretation of justice sees right to the heart of the matter. I think that with using this, I can resolve this case as such. Tywin Lannister, you are guilty of the most heinous of crimes, although, as well pointed out by the opposite number, reflected in a very dangerous world and environment, and can be seen as necessary in that impact. Equally, Benjamin Chang, you were an uncontrollable destructive influence on your own environment, and yet at the same time, you, more than either of you two, have reached out for rehabilitation and seem to have some genuinely positive human characteristics. It occurs to me that the appropriate sentencing is thus. The issue with Tywin Lannister is not simply one of murder and the crimes that he has been listed and committed for. If I could name one crime or one sin that reveals itself more than any with Tywin, it is pride. Pride and necessity enabled his crimes. I would therefore sentence Tywin accordingly. You are going to work at Squidgy Woo's daycare centre as janitor, under constant moderation, monitoring, and with an electric tag to reveal your location at all points. A reduction in your pride, serving proper community service, is the appropriate sentencing and punishment for you. Benjamin Franklin Chang, you are a fucked up guy. I have no qualms or ramifications with commuting your sentence to Redondo Security Prison South, with the caveat that you are allowed at least one day a week of therapy to begin your rehabilitation. It occurs to me that you are too unpredictable, too insipid, and simply too unreliable to be able to live at large in Red Onion society. That is the case for today, closed as such.
May I make a closing statement, Brian?
You are invited.
While we respect the decision of the court, can I just say what an absolute load of bullshit that is? Right, oh my days, you're going to sentence a pensioner to working in a daycare centre? What's he going to do, raise Pokemon eggs? Like, come on, man. Like, Chang, you were denying Chang the psychotherapy he needs. This man is mentally
Objection,
ill.
Your Honor.
This is an issue of
Kindly
healthcare,
offered-
not justice.
Silence. The representative of the prosecution of Tywin Lannister, with the ridiculous name of No Win, No Fee, is invited to leave the court for 5 minutes until the Scumion segment, by which time he has calmed down.
Disgusting. All right, fine. You're on.
Congratulations, representative of the prosecution of Benjamin Chang. I do fear for your mental state as well, and you will also, as a result of winning this case, be invited to at least 1 week of therapy per week in order to sort your shit out as well.
My gracious, sweet Justice Ryan. My mother would be so proud. She was a French-Canadian schnauzer, and my dad was a colonel of fried chicken. Justice Ryan, thank you so much for your kind words and your praises and glorifying of myself and my client Benjamin Chang. My sweet little onions, thank you for hearing this most obvious of cases on this wondrous day. And I would like to close with a verse from a phenomenal piece of haiku written about the man himself. Chang eats the sun and drinks the sky, and they go with him when he dies. This is a man who deludedly believes they're a god. He has proved this time and time again, and he is incapable of Chang. Thank you for your decision today.
The court is now officially dismissed. Thank God. Thank Onion. Although that will not commit sacrilege in this court, we all know
Amen,
that the
brother.
true one deity is the magic onion, who we aspire to rejoin with one day.
Jar bless. Oh yeah, excellent session. I mean, a bit of nonsense there at the end for the sentencing, but what can you say? Some people are a bit too puff past to make real decisions.
Wow.
So, does anyone have a Scumion this week?
Ladies and gentlemen,
My Scumion of the week. I mean, Priti Patel's a pretty good one, isn't she? She's what you shouldn't tear down the statue of a slave trader. I mean, she's like, yeah, that undermines anti-racist protests. Tearing down the statue of a slave trader. I mean, how bloody stupid is that? But she's not really said anything clever since she became Home Secretary, and even before then. So she was fired. I mean, Theresa May, who, when she fired her, was in a pretty poor state. She didn't have that much support among her own party. Fired Priti Patel for covert meetings with a foreign government. So what does Boris do? He gives her the same position again. I mean, this woman shouldn't be anywhere near the cabinet. But yeah, saying tearing down a statue of a slave trader undermines anti-racist protests is just like, what absolute nonsense. What absolute clown that woman is. So yeah, Priti Patel, I think, for me.
brilliant.
So my Scumion of the week this week is actually a group of people, and that's extreme right wingers. So I've spent some time this week on fairly intense conservative Facebook groups in order to understand what they're talking about, and they genuinely believe that all of this, that everything going on in the world is basically a ploy to oppress them because they're all the most oppressed people in the world, that ultimately, like CNN is a communist institution, and it's all part of some grand communist conspiracy in order to undermine them and steal their beautiful white American motherland from them. And quite frankly, what's made me really sad and made me want to name them as Scumion of the week is the fact that you can't have discourse with these people. They are so anti-intellectual and so deluded in their beliefs that it just seems impossible at this time. I hope someone can change my mind about this, but it was a sad realization.
I think choosing extreme right wingers for your Scumion of the week was a bit of an easy one. But
Yeah,
I remember all the stuff you told me about those
but
groups.
not unwarranted. And we could easily just say this week, yeah, the Scumion of the week are conservatives across the world with love and respect to Taylor Jones, of course. I do
Wow, personal shout out, he's made it.
Indeed. One day he might even make an appearance. I'll cut
Oh,
that. Anyway, yeah, I'm not actually going to do that. Sorry, guys. You both picked some really, brilliant, meaningful Scumions. I'm not going to lie. It's the guy who left his car alarm out on for an hour, 2 hours.
Oh, that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
Hour, a whole hour. And
this
this is on top of a day where we've been what's felt like all across North London, Barnet and Southgate and all kinds of areas looking at housing viewings. I've got work to get on with from home. Laura's been busy all day. We had a nice sort of 10-minute window to sit outside. This car alarm has been on for an hour. Bastard. Scumion.
That is
Absolute
terrible,
Scumion.
honestly.
Joint Scumion.
He's maybe the worst person in the country.
Right now, in East Finchley, he is. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up for another week, this edition of the Red Onion podcast. Red Onion Justice, I think, was done. But we invite you, of course, to what are your thoughts? Did the right person win? Did the right person go to Redondo South? Please write it in the comment sections below. Please remember to like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And have a great week.
Just stay your normal voice, Ralph.
Okay, but so many identities to me.
The Red Onion, an effervescent look at a deflated world, was recorded by Laurie Briggs, Ajay Gnanam and Eddie Lambton, and is a silly enterprise you've wasted an hour of your life listening to. Don't be disappointed. You can waste it all over again next Saturday when we discuss a fresh new topic.